Welcome to We Are Fine and Neither Are You, a podcast brought to you by two lifetime besties dealing with the beauty and messiness of midlife. Nothing is off limits. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to We Are Fine and Neither Are You. We have a very special episode today. I have my sweet angel Emma, my daughter, is going to be joining us today. April is taking the week off, and then we will be back together next week for our next episode. So this is going to be a follow-up episode of the Losing My Religion. I had so many people reach out and share such sweet messages with us, and I appreciated that from the bottom of my heart. I wanted to read a couple to you really quick, and then we're going to get going in with our discussion with Emma, and we'll go from there. So a couple things that were said. I love your episode. I'm so proud of you being able to share your story. You did such a great job speaking your truth while being sensitive to those that are still in. I stand for the woman you have become. Actually, I'm so effing proud of you. Such a badass, a trailblazer, an example for many women who need to see the grass is greener on the other side. Beautiful soul. I miss you starting off with that. I just listened to your podcast. What an incredible episode. And then one of them even shared, I wanted to tell you that I listened to your episode. I'm so glad I did. I admit I was a little nervous about how I would feel, but overall, I simply felt lots of love for you. I'm heartbroken for the trauma that you endured, especially from those who were supposed to be followers of Christ, and the many uninformed, inappropriate, and downright cruel comments that should have never been spoken. Thank you for sharing such a painful and personal part of your life. You guys, I could keep going on and on. They mean so much to me. And thank you for reaching out. We will get on to our story with my daughter, Emma. So Emma, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate that. So last week, Mama talked about leaving the Mormon religion. And we, again, just for our listeners, a little recap. About 2 years ago, I found out the truth about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We were many generational believers, and we had to make the difficult decision to step away from the church. And Emma's story is a little unique because she was at BYU whenever all this happened. So first, I'll just ask, how did you feel growing up in the church? What is your experience with that?
I'd say it was very complicated. It felt different in every stage of my life up until the point that I left. I remember when I was younger thinking that it was way too long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
it was 3
for
hours
those of you
long.
it doesn't do that anymore, but it was 3 hours long.
Yeah, it used to be 3 hours long. So I just remember dreading going to church. The one thing I did look forward to was like seeing my friends. I didn't really understand what I was learning, but looking back, the only thing I do remember was the repetition of certain phrases, like be in the world of, but not of the world. Like whenever I started becoming a teenager, I struggled really bad with social anxiety. So
how did you feel with like the programs that were set up for you guys? Because I was in the leadership when Emma was growing up, which I loved, but I thought that, I was hoping that you were having like an easier experience from it. But what was your experience from like the girls' camp and, the youth activities? And
yeah, so my point with the social anxiety is it's a very big thing in the church to be proficient at public speaking. And that's my biggest fear. So it was something that I thought that I wasn't as worthy of a follower of Christ, or that God wouldn't love me as much as my peers because I couldn't get up in front of 200 people and give a talk as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah. And I remember as a leader telling men in the church that, not every young woman was going to speak, and you were one of them. And it was hard because they didn't really like that, and I understand that they were thinking that this was how you get good at those skills, is talking in front of people that you love and that you're comfortable with. But truly, some people do not want to do that. And I put my foot down and I was like, and I remember, Emma would sit next to us during church, during sacrament, and look over at me and just say, why, I don't have to go up there, do I? It was like this constant fear that you really had in your heart that sometimes they would like say, okay, we're going to have they called us sisters and brothers. So they'd say like, we're going to have Sister Ulrich come up and bear her testimony. And
like randomly.
You wouldn't know,
Yeah.
So,
Which is, of course, like I was scared to death
Yeah.
thinking that they could just tell me to come up. And
Right.
I think that a lot of the messages that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints teach
Yeah.
are positive, but they spin it to a just really unhealthy degree.
Yeah.
Like, of course you want to be good at public speaking
Yeah.
and do all these things, but they take away the agency from it, which
Right.
is like you need to be able to learn your own lessons.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
Yeah.
when I was a teenager, it was really hard for me to go to church and pay attention because I'd have anxiety attacks during sacrament meeting, and it was just so miserable.
Would have to sit between Daddy and I.
Yeah, for some reason, I felt a little bit safer, like subconsciously, if I had my parents surrounding me.
Right.
Couldn't tell you why. Sometimes, I mean, I bet if any of you guys have social anxiety, you understand. Yeah. There's just some things
Protection.
that your brain chooses to be safe, and there's no explanation.
Yeah.
But anyways, there was like the Mormon dances.
Do you like those?
Hated them.
Oh gosh, okay.
And there was like Trek and all that. So
Trek. Okay, so explain to our listeners what Trek is.
Guys, hold on. I think I have a picture.
Even better.
I
wonder if I
was
can be cool and
14.
insert it in here somehow.
I'm going to show them either way, but
Okay.
I was 14 years old. And basically Trek is where you go and you're kind of like you're pretending like you're pioneers for a couple days.
Right.
You
I
have to,
mean,
like,
they're dressed up like it. And
it
it's in the middle
was-
of summer, so it's super hot.
No, but then at night, so they told us pack light, it's going to be warm.
Right.
But then I wake up and it's raining on me.
Gosh.
And I had to sleep at the bottom of my sleeping bag and I was bawling my eyes out.
Oh no. That's not the summer camp that you want to be at, right?
No.
Oh geez. What was the food like there?
Oh, it was so bad. Okay.
Look at the little rainbow on you. I love it. Oh yeah, that's great. Uh-huh. That is incredible.
Really bad. My entire identity was the church growing up. So I clung on to that with everything. My entire high school career was focused on getting into BYU. And
I remember
I
that.
hate to say this. And looking back, I wish I didn't think this way, but in my mind, because I got into BYU, God loved me more than the people who didn't get into BYU, which after leaving the church, of course, makes no sense.
Right.
But I was so brainwashed that I was like, yeah, like.
Well, it's about being part of like an elite club.
Yeah.
That not everybody gets to be in. And that's the same with the church. It's like not only are you in a church that knows all the truth, the only truth, but you have to tell your friends to join it so that they can be on your level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is so much like, I'm just going to have to do surface level because, like, so much happened in college.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a teacher for my Relief Society group.
Which is like a group in your church.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like so there's the first hour sacrament meeting, so everyone's there, and then the second hour you're going to go to either like primary class if you're a kid or young men's and young women's if you're a teenager, and then there's Relief Society and what was it called?
And
oh my god, I forgot.
Sunday school?
That's a good sign.
Is it Sunday school? Is that what you're talking about?
No, for men.
Oh, the priesthood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. I'm forgetting things.
I
That's
know.
really good. But anyways, so I was a teacher for Relief Society, which I accepted it because in my mind, I got that calling because God wanted me to get over my social anxiety.
Mm.
Did that work? No. I'm still socially anxious.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Now, when you were in college, did you want to go to church? Like, was that something that was exciting for you?
Well, because at BYU, it's almost cool to be active.
Okay. Well, yeah, it should be. You're going to a church school.
Yeah, but you'd think like when you're at home and there's people who go to your church, like if someone's inactive, it's not like they're cool or not cool.
Right.
But at BYU, from the group that I was in, I guess, it was like, oh, everyone went to church. Everyone went to the temple on their days off.
Right.
Everyone went to the church activities.
Wow.
That was your whole life. And I thought that I was an extreme Mormon when I was not in college. It got even worse when I was in college. Yeah, it was everything I did, thought about. It was very extreme.
So you were in it. And
Oh
then,
my God, it was my entire identity.
and here's mama going through her deconstruction. And
So,
but did you feel like my mom's losing her mind?
oh, absolutely. So
Oh,
that's the interesting thing about the church is they teach you put the church before anything.
okay.
God before everything else.
Right.
So if your family starts saying things, tell someone.
Mm.
Like, which I didn't.
They
but
literally say,
they
tell
literally
someone?
will say, like, hey, if your mom or dad are going against like the commandments or teaching you wrong things, like tell a trusted adult.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So they
Okay.
literally teach you.
And this was at BYU that they were saying this?
Oh, this was since I was like a teenager. They taught
Okay.
that in seminary.
Interesting.
Which, by the way, I had to go to church every single day before school.
Yeah, and you
in high
graduated
school.
from that
I was a
too.
seminary teacher,
Mhm.
president.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
so then, I was a teacher in college,
Super active.
very active. And then I remember, I knew my mom was questioning things, but I still was very strong in, no, I want this to be my future. Like,
Right.
it was so intense that I wanted to like work in the temple when I was
Yeah.
older.
And did you ever look down on Daddy and I, or did you think like, oh my gosh, my mom is the one that's bringing us all down, or it was both of us?
No,
or what was your opinion about us as
I was
people in the church?
scared hearing that there would be someone in my family who was doubting. Like, I've never, I think I've only really felt that much fear in my life one other time.
Because that equals we're not together in the next
Yeah,
life.
like,
right. That we're going to hell.
The worst thing to happen to a Mormon.
Right.
Is a family member leaving the church.
And you never wanted to serve a mission.
No, I did. What kept me was the social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like a nightmare having to go up to people that I didn't know
and tell them they weren't living correctly
for a year and a half. But I remember the day that I decided I wasn't going to be in the church anymore.
Now, was this before or after we told you about the truth that we found?
This was, I think, the same.
Because I couldn't tell you. Daddy called you. I want to hear about that experience.
I think this was after.
Okay, so what happened?
No, that was before. So
you were already starting to have doubts. Okay.
So I took an anthropology class. This was my second semester of my freshman year. And I had absolutely adored this professor. And I remember he had a debate about eternal truth. The whole purpose of the lecture was, what is eternal truth? Is that even a real thing? And he brought up this case where there was a town, there was a Christian church who put up a statue in the town city, like the center of the city.
Right.
And then there was a Satanist group who also put a statue in the middle of the city, right next to it.
Goodness.
As a protest to religious freedom or something like that. And he asked us who was in the right. And never in my life have I put another church equal to mine.
Interesting.
Ever. Because in my mind, since I was born, I was taught, you're so lucky. You're so, so lucky to be born in the true church, and you didn't have to spend your earthly existence searching for the truth. And so I was like, wait, I've never shifted my thought process to be like that.
Have a critical thought.
It was really like a mind F, because I don't even know how to explain how it felt.
Yeah.
Because for 19 years of my life, I was thinking the same way and thought I was completely in the right.
Yeah.
And then I was absolutely humbled in that moment.
Yeah.
So then he said, I invite you guys to go home and do research about the church.
Wow.
And I don't think that's allowed.
Was he a member of the church?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
But he was the same professor who said, who are you to criticize people who are wearing cross necklaces?
Wow.
If that's how they're reminded to be Christ-like,
right,
don't criticize them.
And just a little side note for our listeners, the members of the Mormon Church do not wear a cross because they believe that the cross represents the way Christ was murdered. And so why would you want to remember that instead of...
It's like if someone got shot and you're wearing a gun
Yeah.
necklace. That's how they would compare it.
Exactly. So, but Christians believe in wearing the cross because that's proof that we all get to live again. That's not the murder weapon. It's actually the symbol of us having eternal life. So it's like something to celebrate. So wearing a cross is looked down upon by other members of the church. So that's why that guy was referencing, like, don't judge other people that are wearing crosses.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and he also ended it. He was like, so if you keep this story in mind and also think about eternal truth, like, how does that make you feel?
Right.
And he ended the lecture.
Wow.
I don't know if he ended it because he realized he shouldn't have said something
Right.
as a professor, because of course at a religious private college, there's certain things that the university will not allow you to say to your students.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's why he ended the lecture.
Okay.
Because it was very abrupt. He was like, okay, like, I have to go.
Yikes.
It was not even the full lecture.
We should look up and see if he's still there.
I don't know.
Okay.
I love him.
Okay.
But, so I went into my dorm room and for the first time in my life, searched up the church on the internet.
Really?
I have never searched it up other than Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.org.
We're told not to. Yeah.
It's literally against the church because they teach you it's all lies.
Right.
It's people who are trying to make you go away.
Yep.
But with an unbrainwashed mind, that logic doesn't make any sense.
Right. Why would you, if it's the truth, it can stand up against anything.
Why would you want to keep people from researching if there's not, if there's like nothing that you don't want them to see, like just let them research it. If they'll only find more truth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I did. And I remembered my parents told me about something called the CES letter.
Now, didn't Daddy call you and tell you that we weren't going to go to church anymore or something? How did he tell you?
I told you guys.
Because
after searching that up.
Okay.
And then that's when you guys told me about it. Because I think that might have been a little bit of like a green flag because I had shown so much disdain every time you guys would bring it up and fear.
Yeah.
But then once I told you guys, wait,
I'm on the same page.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
Then you guys were like, okay. So I would not say you guys are the reason that I left. I would say it is such a personal thing for me. And there are so many accounts of people leaving by themselves. Their families don't leave with them. I think it was definitely a choice that I made subconsciously by myself.
Yeah.
But then needed the support from my family.
Yeah. Thank gosh. You know,
like,
we're so lucky that we all got out together.
Oh my gosh, I know.
It would have just been a totally different story. And I mean, so many people lose their marriages, their families get split up, siblings don't like each other, they don't talk to each other anymore.
Relationships end.
Yeah.
Happened to me.
Right. Yeah. That's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Dated someone. We both weren't, this was after I left the church. And then he told me he wanted to be Mormon again.
Yeah.
So then we stopped dating.
Right.
And I think a lot of people listening might think that was a mistake.
Right.
But I would do it again.
Yeah. Because
I would leave that person again because religion is so important. And especially I can never date and marry someone who is in the cult that I left.
Yeah, exactly. And raising your children that way too.
But yeah, so
here you are at BYU.
Yeah.
You've lost your religion.
Oh, and then it gets worse.
Okay.
I stayed a whole other semester once I left.
And we asked you not to. We were saying, come home.
Yes, they were saying, don't do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, my friends are here. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the BYU football games.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah.
It was a mistake.
Yeah, that was hard.
I don't even know where to start with that. It almost felt like I was a spy a little bit.
Really?
Because I still had to go to religion classes because each semester, or you have to complete a certain amount of religion classes at BYU to graduate.
Right.
So technically you're at college, but you have to do more work than the average student.
Right. And that's typical for any, I think,
private university. But I couldn't tell any of my friends.
Could they tell that something was wrong?
No.
Okay.
Well, because I was Mormon for 19 years, so I could
Right.
play the part very well.
Okay. Yeah, we know how to do
But
that.
it tore me up inside because I remember going to these religion classes and hearing the way that these people talked about non-Mormons.
Oh, I know.
And me thinking, oh my goodness, like, that's how I sounded.
Yeah.
I completely looked down on people who weren't Mormon, thinking, I feel so bad for you. Like,
Right.
you are so lost. You're
Yeah.
so confused.
You only have part of the truth.
Exactly.
Right.
And then I started hearing these people talk like this, and I was like, this is so trippy.
Yeah.
Because it was such a once in a lifetime experience, and it just confirmed my decision of leaving the church.
Yeah.
Because I would be sitting there and just have just these out of body experiences. Like, how did I even think that was okay?
Yeah, I know.
And it was a very homophobic place as well.
Interesting.
My entirety of being a member, I have never been homophobic.
Right.
Ever.
Well, yeah.
I always knew that was not okay.
Right, because you were raised with us.
Yeah.
Believing that everybody's loved no matter what.
But Mormons are very openly homophobic.
Not all.
The ones that I was surrounded by at BYU,
they were pretty bad.
Majority of them are openly homophobic.
Okay, that's sad.
And I actually had some gay friends at BYU.
Gosh, they were brave.
And well, so the thing is, there was like a pride club at BYU, and they would have like a club fair at BYU, and that one club was not allowed to have a booth.
Wow.
It was taken down.
Okay.
Because they didn't want them to promote
that lifestyle.
That gay is okay. But yeah, staying at BYU while I was not Mormon was definitely a mistake in some ways, but also I'm thankful for it because I'm just now extra sure that
it confirmed your decision.
I shouldn't be in the church. And I remember there was one time when it accidentally slipped out that I wasn't Mormon to my friend.
Oh my goodness. How?
Well, I was at In-N-Out.
Okay.
And I was with her, and there was this guy that sat down at our table and started flirting with us. And then his friend comes and sits down, and they were returned missionaries. And I had been so good at playing the part up until this night.
Wow.
It just slipped out. And so he was like, hey, like, what are your names? Where do you go to school? And I was like, oh, I go to BYU, but I'm transferring to UVU next semester. And he was like, oh, why? And I said, because I'm not Mormon anymore. And my heart sunk.
Because your friend that you were with didn't know either?
No one knew.
Wow.
Not a single person in Utah knew that I wasn't Mormon.
And it is hard to even say that for the first time out loud.
Yeah.
Because that's who you've been your whole life.
Yeah. And he immediately took that as a missionary moment.
Oh, boy.
And was like, oh, well, can I ask why? And I pretty much dissociated during this conversation because my focus was on my friend who was sitting across from me, who was about to break down. Aww. Because in her mind, there's this friend who
is lost.
Who's this person? Well, it's like, does she even know who I am? Right. Because I've been lying to her this whole time.
Oh,
but I had to.
Right.
Because if you're not Mormon and you're getting the Mormon tuition,
there's
you're
a
going to
consequence.
Get reported.
Right. There's a consequence.
And so I remember going back to my car and she just started crying. And she was like, I don't even know who you are.
Wow.
And she was just
shocking.
saying, like, I'm so sorry that something that Mormons a lot of time use whenever I've told them that I'm not Mormon is, I'm sorry that you've had that experience with the church.
So they
completely putting it on me.
Right. They just discount your feelings and your experience and saying that you're a one-off, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has been the majority of the reaction from Mormons.
That's such an insensitive response to somebody's trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that point, once I transferred to UVU, then that's when I told my friends that I wasn't Mormon anymore, and I lost most of them.
Wow.
It was a really, really dark time in my life. And
I remember that.
Yeah, I had a very small amount of friends. And even the friends that I had for a while, I could tell there was a shift in the way they looked at me.
They were uncomfortable.
I'm a very sensitive person to people's energy and like their body language and their facial expressions and their tone of voice.
Right.
And there was a distinct difference between the way they treated me and held themselves around me, like,
Before
when
and
I was
after.
Mormon and then after.
Yep.
And it's so interesting because the whole time I knew I wasn't Mormon, but they didn't.
Right.
But then as soon as they knew,
Yeah.
I'm behaving the same way and I'm
Exactly.
the same
You're the
person.
same person. Yeah.
So it was a really frustrating thing for me. And again, was just very confirming because I don't want to be even friends with people
Right.
who are friends with me because of similar religion.
They just like to be in their comfort zones.
And I was friends with people because of similar religion.
Right.
So I understand where they're coming from because
Right.
it's safe.
You have the same lifestyle.
Same morals and
Yeah.
values. You have the
Yeah.
same goals. Of course you're going to want to be friends with them.
Right.
But
it is really
that
fun
was
to
the
have friends
last
outside the box, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
That I was like that in high school.
I know.
But that was the last thing I needed was for what I thought were my friends to cut me off.
Yeah.
Because I lost my entire identity.
You
Every
did.
decision I made was made with the church in mind.
I know.
So then when I left, it was such a confusing thing because
Who are you now?
I mean, like, do I start drinking? Do I, like, what's the line with boys?
Yeah.
What's the like, where do I go to school now?
Right.
What career choice do I want to do?
Yeah.
It was almost like being reborn.
I know.
It was very, very difficult, but I'm so glad it happened. And, like, I'm so glad we're out.
Yeah.
Like, I really do think I'm a completely different person.
We all are,
Like,
for sure. But you know what I love is that you're more you now.
Exactly.
You're you.
Yeah.
Where, when you're in the church or in a high demand religion or even in like a high demand community, you sometimes just start to all blend together and you all look the same and you act the same and you say the same things, you believe the same things. But when you get out of it, you've been able to just really, like, from the ground up, be like, what do I believe in? What do I like? What do I not like? Where are my lines? What's my morals and values? What am I going to stand for? What am I not going to stand for? And I'm so thankful that you're able to do it at such a young age because Mama is twice as old as you. And it's really hard when you've had that many years of conditioning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So then you leave the church, you get out of BYU, and now you're back in California and finding your way still, and you feel like you're able to, have you found a community? Do you feel like you have a spirituality, a connection? Like, where have you landed with that?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I don't think I found myself in a community again.
Right.
But I don't think that I've been looking for one. I have a friend from high school that I'm still friends with, and she's been like my absolute rock.
And is she a member?
No, she's not.
Okay.
But I wasn't like only friends with people who were Mormon in high school.
Right.
So I still have her.
Good.
But I haven't found like the type of community that I had when I was Mormon, where there's like a lot of people who
feel like family.
Yeah, like I'd have like hangout nights with my Mormon friends where like there'd be like 30 of us.
Right.
And we were all pretty close. But and like when you're Mormon, you have connections. Like if you need a job, you're going to have a job within a week.
They take care of each other.
But now that I'm not Mormon, it's like I have to learn how to live completely differently.
Yeah. On the outside.
But yeah, I wouldn't say I have a community. I don't feel like I need one though.
And you're so young right now still. In the earlier episode, I was talking about how for every 10 years we're in the high demand religion, it usually takes a year to process. So you essentially have 2 years to process, and you're almost done with that because we've been out for 2 years. And you've been even deconstructing a little bit before we even came out.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know if that applies to everyone.
Yeah.
I don't think that, especially with deconstruction, you should put time limits on it.
Right. That's a good point.
That's how I've been with everything in my life.
Just give yourself grace.
I know that, especially as like mother-daughter, it's hard whenever like you see me upset or crying, like with breakups, for example. And I remember you'd be like, okay, like give yourself this much time and then
be done.
Be done. But I never agreed with that because in my heart I knew I'm not done grieving.
And you'll know when you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
So I think that's what's important. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but I think what's important whenever you're going through such life-altering, like, traumatic events is do not rush the healing process.
Right.
Because that's when some deeper trauma can be caused.
I agree.
I think I am so authentic and have come into the person that I know I actually am because I have taken the time to be sad about it, to grieve about it.
Feel your feelings.
Like, that's an understatement. Like, I was in such a dark period. I give that all credit to, like, those horrible, horrible moments that I spent alone.
Yeah.
Not without you, of course,
No,
but it's like you're alone in your own mind.
Absolutely.
And, like, it's so much, like, rewiring that you have to do personally. No one can do that for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a different thing that I had to wrap my brain around since leaving the church, because I had so many people doing things for me. If I needed a job, I had them looking for that for me.
Right.
I had college already lined up. I already knew what career I needed to do. I already knew all the rules I needed to follow. And I'm such a perfectionist that it was such a good religion for me because I was able to feed that perfectionism.
To follow this list of demands, and then you'll get this result.
Yeah.
And you know what's sad? What I saw growing up in the church too is there would be really good people that would follow all the rules and do all the things, and then they still would have bad things happen to them. And I didn't understand that. I'm like, why does it happen like that sometimes? You know, they were given this promise and God has to keep his word. And, you know, why does that happen? Why does this girl have to have her mom die of breast cancer when we're all fasting and praying for her? Like, it didn't make sense, you know? And then you've got this guy who's like abusing his kids and he's alive and kicking. So it to me, that's when my like little brain was just like, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand how that could be for some people. So what would be your advice now that you're on this side of things for somebody in their early 20s that is possibly starting to deconstruct
or like doubting the church?
Yeah, like what would you tell somebody if they were like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I believe this?
I'd say get out. Like, that's like the simplest thing I can say. And it's really scary. Like, I've been in that position where I didn't even trust my own parents.
Right.
And I was choosing the church over my own family.
Right.
But now that I have left, I wouldn't do anything different.
Okay.
I would do it the same way. If you're doubting, I say do the research, because especially as a college student, I was so fact-based.
And the facts are out there.
Yeah. And that's why the church is so dangerous, because they lead by faith.
Right.
You have to just believe that it's true.
Right.
And then they tell you the closer it gets to the second coming, more people are going to leave.
I remember hearing that too, that even the most valiant, the most righteous people will fall.
So that's a really dangerous thing to say, because in my mind, I kept thinking about that.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't want to be that person.
Jesus must be coming back because people are leaving, and I'm going to stay because I am better and more valiant than these other people.
You don't want to be part of the dark side.
But another piece of advice is like, take a step back and like write these things down and think about it logically. That was my point. From when I was young, they taught us these easy phrases to remember about the church.
Right.
And it just ingrains in you until you're older, to where you don't even have to think about it. It's just fact to you because you've been taught it from such a young age.
Right.
But when you actually sit down with the things that they're saying, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
None of it makes sense.
Yeah.
Their doctrine changes constantly. And they're really, like, I can tell they're struggling.
Right.
Like, especially now, people are leaving a lot.
Right. And so you would say, so just look into it. Don't be scared.
Look into it. Do your research and get the F out of there.
Right.
And
then what have you done to feel connection now? Like, is there anything that you have done that has given you like a connection to like a higher source, or like, what do you think this life is all about now?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So I'd say I'm agnostic now. I spent a majority of my life like so sure and like positive of the things that I was saying and the things that I was teaching and learning. But now for the first time in my life, I'm able to say that I don't know.
Right.
I was forced to say, I know that this is true.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that this is true.
Yeah.
But now I have agency and I'm able to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like the most freeing thing in the world.
Right.
To be able to just take a breath and just kind of let go. Nothing that I believe, do, or say is going to change what happens after this life,
Right.
or what the reality is. Let's say there is a God. Me believing it or not isn't going to change if there's a God or not.
Right.
What is important to me is how I feel with myself and the person that I am, how I treat people.
Right.
Am I a baseline good person?
Yeah.
I'd say I am.
Of course.
And I think that's what it's important.
Yeah.
Is you're treating people with respect and kindness, and you're leaving a positive impact while you're alive on this earth.
Absolutely.
If I believe in an afterlife or not doesn't change if there's an afterlife or not.
Right.
That's just where I am in my life.
Right.
And I'm constantly changing.
And she's 21, you guys, just so you know, like age-wise.
Yeah.
So
but I'm constantly changing. Like, this could change, and I'm okay with it changing.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm really happy with where I am, and I feel peace more than when I was in the church. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily like spiritual, but I've been told a lot of times I'm comforting, and I have a really strong intuition.
Yeah, you
and
do.
The church teaches you when you leave, you are going to lose everything.
I know.
I lost so much, but I gained myself.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And I love that for you. That's so great, honey. And I'm so proud of you. And you've come so far, and you're such a strong person. And even though you're my kid, I still look up to you.
Thank you.
And I'm so thankful that you're mine.
And also, if anyone listening is doubting and like needs someone to lean on, you guys can follow me. My Instagram is emma.ulrichh. Just like send me a DM.
Yeah.
Because I would have killed for someone to talk to that has been through this.
Yep.
And I yap all the time. I'm a big talker.
It's
so
very sweet of you. And
yeah.
I'll put it in our show notes too, so that they can find it there too.
Yeah.
As we're ending our little episode here with Emma, thank you so much for being on here too, by the way. I just love you so much.
I love you too.
So if you could give your younger self a little bit of advice, what do you think that you would love to tell little Emma?
Relax. I was so worried about being perfect and following all the rules that kind of let my childhood slip away in a way.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm like in college and working, like after high school, like there's no breaks.
Right.
Really. I mean, you like, it's your life, you can take breaks, but it's like you're always going to be expected of something. But when you're a kid, you're really expected to grow up and like enjoy life and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Also, excuse the reflection.
I know.
My mom has like a sun catcher. But I know if I would be watching this, I'd be thinking like, what is that? But
all over there.
But I just say I would tell my younger self to relax.
Yeah.
And to not worry about everything so much. I worried way too much.
Shoot, that's something we could take now even. Learn to relax. Learn to enjoy every day and have fun, and just don't take things too seriously, right? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, of course.
I really appreciate you sharing your story. I know that it can be a little tough, but there's so many people out there that need to hear it. And please reach out if anybody needs to talk or to have some time to just discuss their feelings. And we hope that you guys all can find your truth, find your way, and find your happiness. And with that, we will see you guys next week. So take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to We Are Fine and Neither Are You. This podcast is all about spreading joy, knowledge, and laughter. While we strive to provide accurate information, please keep in mind that we're only human and mistakes happen. In addition, we would like to remind our listeners that the opinions expressed throughout this episode are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We do not claim to be experts in any particular field, and the content provided should not be taken as professional advice. We We encourage you to consult with qualified professionals or do your own research before making any decisions based on the information shared in this podcast. Thank you for joining us, and remember to stay curious and critical in your pursuit of knowledge. Please rate and review this episode. Your feedback is important to us.